Well, hey, welcome back. Dave DeBow here. And today we're going to be talking about how to raise money for real estate development. All right, so you're wondering how to raise some money for your real estate development? Well, on today's video, we're going to take a look at how to figure out how much money you need, who to go after, how to structure your deal for success for both parties, and how to stay out of trouble with the law. Stay tuned. All right, so the first step when it comes to raising capital for your real estate development is to figure out how much capital do you need. I mean, it seems pretty obvious, but sometimes people don't really look at this thoroughly or thoroughly enough. So you have to take into account a lot of different things. First of all, how much is the property itself going to cost? What's the cost of that property? What's the holding cost of that property while you're going through the process of getting ready for development? What are the development costs? I mean, how much does it cost to get it rezoned? How long is that going to take realistically, right? It usually takes a heck of a lot longer than you expect. How many fees or how much is the local jurisdiction going to charge you to make any changes in the zoning? These kind of things, all right? That's before you even start creating the plans. Then you have to look at getting inspections. Then you have to look at getting plans drawn up. Then you have to look at all of the permitting costs incurred with that. So take into account all of those to come up with a really, really accurate idea of how much capital you're going to need, and then tax them on extra for contingencies. The second thing you want to do with this whole raising capital for your development deal is to make sure that you've got a good, strong network of connections. Make sure that you are connected with potential lenders, joint venture partners, the team members that you're going to need to make this deal happen, the construction team that you're going to need, the engineers, the architects, all these kind of folks, you need to have them lined up well ahead of time. Don't wait until you got a deal on the go and then try scrambling to find all of this. Get all of these ducks in a row first of all. So when it comes to finding the investors for these kind of deals, I'm going to suggest the first place that you should really focus is on your existing network of connections. Friends, family members, coworkers, business associates. Why? Because if you don't already have a track record of working with investors and their capital, it's very, very difficult to go out to strangers. Plus, quite frankly, it could be illegal, right? Depending on what you're doing and how you're doing it, you have to be very, very careful about how you're raising capital. So the safest, fastest, and easiest capital to go after is from within your existing network. These people already know you, they already like you, they already trust you. It's just a matter of positioning your deal in the right way to get them to invest with you. So again, make sure you've got all of those pieces in place before you start doing your development deal. All right, the third thing you need to do is you need to create a compelling pitch, a pitch deck, so to speak. And what is a pitch deck? It is a presentation that you're going to show to potential investors about your deal. You're going to be able to walk them through how the whole thing is going to work so they understand exactly what's in it for them, what the pros are, what the cons are, what the risks, what the rewards are, so they can make an educated decision about investing with you in your deal. So here's a few tips about creating a very, very effective investor pitch deck. The first tip is that you keep it super simple. A big tendency for us to do is to complicate things. I mean, think about it. Charts, graphs, data. It's so easy to come up with all of this stuff, and we think we need all of this in our pitch deck to make a compelling argument. Well, guess what? Most people are not super analytical. So if you go after them, showing them spreadsheets, showing them data, showing them too many charts and graphs, their eyes are going to roll back, they're going to zone out, and they're not going to invest because it's too complicated. So a big, big tip is keep it super simple. My recommendation is dumb it down. Now, it doesn't mean that your investors are dumb. It just means make it super simple for them to understand. Make it Reader's Digest simple. Reader's Digest is a magazine written for grown-ups, but it's written at a 13-year-old comprehension level. That's what we want to do for our investor pitch deck. Make it super easy for people to understand. That way we can hit everybody. We can hit the folks that don't really know much about real estate, and especially don't know much about development, and they're going to get it. We can also show this to more advanced investors, and they're going to appreciate the fact that you've made it easy for them to understand. Now, if you get a super analytical, you can have some of those graphs and charts and spreadsheets in your back pocket to show to them, but don't have that as part of your normal pitch deck. Another big tip for you, take Tom Peters' advice. under promise and try to over deliver. So make sure your projections are not pie in the sky. One of the biggest mistakes I see people making is they only show the best case scenario. They're shooting for the stars, and the chances of them actually hitting that are minimal. So I'm going to recommend make your projections very, very conservative. It still needs to be attractive. It still needs to make sense, but then do your best to exceed those. Because here's what's going to happen. If you over deliver, then your investors are going to be thrilled. They're going to want to reinvest with you. And just as important, they're going to be a great source of referrals and testimonials so you can bring on more investors in the future. So make sure you've got a really good pitch deck and that you're not over-promising. The next step for raising capital for your development deal is to build credibility and trust with your potential investors or joint venture partners. How do you do that? You show them what your track record is. And let's say you don't have much of a track record doing development deals, but you've done other kind of real estate deals. Well, show them what you've done. Show them what your background is. Show them how you're able to pull in from your other employment, your other jobs, and how those skill sets will benefit them in this development deal. Show them skill set that your team members have. Show them all the different people that are going to be involved in this and how they're going to help support make this a successful deal. So again, it's all about building up that credibility, building up that trust. A big tip for trust here, when you are doing your pitch deck, when you're showing people how it's all going to work, show them what the pitfalls are. Show them what the risks are and what you're going to do to minimize the chances of that happening, or what you're going to do should that thing happen. That's going to go a long way to help build up that credibility and that trust. All right, point number 5 when it comes to raising capital for your development deal is to make sure you follow the rules and regulations. I'm talking about legalities here. So you have to be very, very careful when it comes to raising capital, especially from strangers. If you're in the States, you've got the Securities and Exchange Commission to be aware of. You also have state regulatory authorities that you need to be aware of as well, okay? And you have to take a look. It can apply to the location where you're building the property, doing the development. It can also apply to the location where your investors are coming from. So you need to understand how that works. In Canada, we don't have the Securities and Exchange Commission, but we do have provincial securities regulators. And basically, all of them say it's illegal for you and I, as mom and pop real estate investors, to solicit investment or solicit investors from the general public unless we're either licensed to do so, or unless we've set up an offering memorandum, or unless we've set up a certain corporate structure with exemptions if you're in the States and you're doing a 506B or 506C type offering type situation, which in quite a few cases, if you're doing a small development, may not make sense. It might be more expensive than what it's worth. So where does that leave us? Well, quite often we are able to work with close friends, relatives, and business associates, people we have a pre-existing relationship with. And that's what I'm going to suggest you focus on and who you start with. Again, like we mentioned earlier, who else, if you're just getting started with raising capital, quite frankly, who else is going to invest with you, right? If you go out to complete strangers, you don't have a track record. You don't have any pre-existing relationship. So get going with what you've got first and then build from there. All right, I got a great example of building up a real estate development company, and this is our client, Carina. When I first met Carina, she and her husband, Dave, had done a number of small kind of development deals on their own. What Carina was very, very good at was navigating red tape. She was excellent at that. She's excellent at a lot of things, but she was excellent at finding opportunities. In this case, when she first got started, she would find single-family homes on big lots in her city. And her city was looking at growing and developing and intensifying things. So she would find these houses on big lots. She would get them under contract. She would buy them. And she'd do this under her own financial steam. So they bought their first couple of deals using their own money. And then what she did, she was very smart. She kept the building that was already on there as a rental. And the cash flow from that would help cover her mortgage costs. But in the meantime, she would spend all of the time and effort needed to get that property rezoned. So she'd get it rezoned for a multifamily development type deal. And that was really good. That already bumped up the value of the property. But then what she did was she would go to the next step and get the plans made for that property as well. So she'd go to the architects and the engineers and the planning department. She'd get all the permits and everything. and she would create this product. Now remember, she still had the same property with a crappy little house on it, but now it had the whole plan in place. Now she could sell the property and the plans to a developer, and it was what's called shovel ready. That meant they could just go right in, all the permits were taken care of, and they could start building. Because guess what builders love to do? They love to build. They don't love to do any of that other stuff. So she took care of all of that and made a very, very pretty penny for doing that. So she did that for her first couple of deals. Then she was limited by how much she could do, and she had to focus on smaller ones. So she started bringing on joint venture partners. She started doing bigger deals. She doing bigger properties, same kind of idea. Get it all ready, sell it to a developer. But then she started thinking, well, hey, why don't I do the development as well? So that's how she did it. She started bringing on investor partners. Not only would they purchase the property and get everything set up, but then they were ready to actually build it themselves. And that's the stage she's at right now. And she's able to scale because she's got joint venture partners on board. All right, if you're interested in finding out how to raise money for your real estate development, I've got a shortcut for you. It's my book, Money Partner Formula. You can get a free copy of it. Click on the link in the description below or go to investorattractionbook.com. This goes over the exact same process Carina did for attracting her investors for her development deals, and you can do the same thing too.